Welcome to In Focus, produced by SAC News, where we get a chance to introduce you to interesting people and subjects in the SAC community. I'm Brenda Ramirez, and our guest for this episode is Trent Tush, broadcaster for the Los Angeles Angels, Fox Sports, and Fox 11. Let's take a look at his highlight reel.
Here in Ames, taking on number 9 Iowa State, is walking inside our broadcast booth. He's Spencer Tillman. My name is Trent Tush. Boy, Spencer, it was all about the running game in those opening 30 minutes.
It was spooky if you were on the defense.
Absolute no doubter from Zach Neto, and you know he wanted it too. I mean, all the talk coming into this matchup, knowing who he was facing in Tarek Skubal, that was effectively the knockout blow. Officially, it was the little tapper that Mike Trout had for his infield single, but that had to be a good moment for Zach Neto. I thought to see Logan O'Hoppe have a double early.
Welcome, Trent, and thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your job. You seem to have gone pretty far in what seems like a short amount of time.
Yeah, I guess it's a short amount of time. It feels like it's been a long time. So I've known really from the time that I was, in high school, that this is what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be an athlete as a kid, and then I became very, very self-aware by the time I was in high school that was not going to happen, that I had to find a different path to be in sports. And for me, it's been in broadcasting and doing a lot of different things, whether it be television, radio, pre-games, post-games, play-by-play. I've been an analyst at times, even for sports I didn't play. You just find different ways in this crazy business. And it's been a lot of fun just kind of being able to dive in from a young age. And my gosh, now I've kind of, I've been in broadcasting for more than half my life, which is kind of crazy at 33 years old.
Was there like a significant moment where you realized that you wanted to become like a broadcaster, go into it?
I think it always feels like it's kind of been inherent that was going to happen for me. As a kid, I used to love watching Regis Philbin. I don't know how many students here are Regis Philbin fans, but I loved Regis. I thought he brought just an energy. He was on TV all the time, a little bit of everything. I actually liked that he was a sports guy, even though it wasn't a sports show, but I loved watching Regis as a kid. So I'd get a karaoke machine for Christmas, and I'd plug it in and drag it around the house and put on my suit, and I had a little tux as a kid. I was in a wedding when I was a little kid. I'd put that on, and I'd go around the house interviewing people, asking questions, and I just kind of been doing that from a young age. And, I always also kind of thought that doing play-by-play would be something for me, because when I would play, I'd be on my basketball team and spending a lot of time sitting on the bench. So when you're on the bench, you have time, talking. I'd be calling my teammates playing because I wasn't on the floor, so I could call the action from the bench. And I was like, there's got to be a career path for me to find a way to do this. And, I've been doing it as long as I can remember, even when I was a little kid.
I know you have a lot of different jobs, but how did you get your position with the Angels?
When I was with the Angels, I all got started. I was still finishing up my degree at Chapman University, and we had a great professor there, a guy by the name of Pete Weitzner, who is really somebody that I've always looked up to and always kind of took care of me. And I was doing games for ESPN3 at the time. I always say it was streaming before streaming was cool. And I was doing games for them just kind of on a freelance basis, low-level college sports. It was Division I, but I wasn't getting the big-ticket matchups. And, Pete called and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that would want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to just get my foot in the door." And the job was to be a morning sports updates anchor on the radio station, KLAA, where I still work today, now 12 years later. And I was doing that 15 hours a week at $15 an hour. But I was so excited to do the job, I couldn't say no, because it was my foot in the door to Major League Baseball. And from that, I've been able to build a career and get a lot of different opportunities, meet lots of interesting people. And it all kind of really started from getting going to the Angels at a young age, taking a very small position in the station. And I give the Angels credit, too, for allowing me the opportunity to grow.
What's it like working for the Angels and like Fox Sports and all that? I know they're really big like companies and brands.
It's fun. People think of the Angels because it's a major organization. It's Major League Baseball. You'd think it's big, and there's only so many pro sports franchises. I'm telling you, the Angels feels very mom and pop. It is, I have a good relationship with the president, the incoming president and the outgoing president. I know the owner. I know all the executives, people that are making major decisions in baseball. I've gotten to know them like very well. I can text them or call them at any time. There's not a lot of places and companies, even in sports, where that is something that the lowly broadcaster is going to be able to do. And there's a lot of broadcasters with the Halos, and I'm happy to be one of them. So that's a pretty different way to, I think, how most sports entities operate, how the Angels do, versus Fox is a massive corporation. Lachlan Murdoch is probably not going to take a phone call if I pick him up, and if he did, I would almost feel like, oh no, did I do something wrong? Like, you almost have to worry about that. The hierarchy is so significant. But when I'm at Fox, when I'm talking to executives about wanting feedback and advice, and they give it to you, and it's great to get that. The same people that are giving me feedback are giving Tom Brady feedback and Kevin Burkhardt, like massive stars, and Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. These are the people that they're working with, and then here I am, and it's like, what kind of crazy world are we in here? Fox is so massive and so big, you just feel honored to have any kind of small part in that at all. Versus, the Angels, you almost feel at the times kind of big fish, small pond, and it's a really neat opportunity to kind of get the best of both worlds in that.
I know you just mentioned having like a closer relationship with both the president for the Angels and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I would assume that covering athletes is a little intimidating, especially after losses. Would you say that it is?
Yeah, going into the clubhouse after a loss and having to talk to the manager, and part of the job is the responsibility to deliver for the fans and ask the questions that demand answers. When something goes wrong in the game, you got to address that. You got to bring that up. Now, part of what I do is I spend 10% of my job is what you see on the air. 90% of it is developing relationships and being around and garnering that trust that I think is so important, so that when it comes time to go grill the manager after a heartbreaking loss, where I probably disagree with the decision, but he's still the manager and I'm going to respect that. But I'm able to ask these questions in a certain way, and the manager's going to know that it's coming from a place of, I'm not trying to get you, I'm just trying to do what's right and get the right explanation, allow you to have the opportunity and the platform to defend yourself a little bit too. So it can be intimidating. Going to the loser locker room is always very tough. I'll never forget, I got some of my best experience of this in 2015. I was covering hockey, covering the Ducks, and I've never really been a big hockey guy, but that Ducks team was on the doorstep of getting the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 2007. And they lost in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals to the Chicago Blackhawks. And I had to go into the Ducks locker room after a Game 7 home loss that kept them from going to the Stanley Cup. And the emotion of those players, it was gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, everything. But you still got to go in there and be a professional. And I really admire the athletes that take that on. And, sometimes they wear it. And hockey is such a team sport. When you win, it's, oh, look what we did as a team. When you lose, hockey players say, this is my fault. I didn't deliver when I should have. And I always really respect that about athletes. But that was a tough but really great way for me to kind of learn how to handle those situations in such a crushing defeat at such a young age when I was in my first year on the job.
Seeing as you build relationships also with athletes, are there any that you like to cover, like your favorites?
Well, it's been a dream covering Mike Trout because he's just a great guy. And we're talking about a Hall of Famer, probably on the first ballot. He's an honest-to-goodness legend of this era, a 3-time MVP and 11-time All-Star. But as much as I love Mike, the most interesting player I ever covered was Shohei Ohtani. And when Shohei came to the Angels, the scene, a lot of people forget that he really did not play very well his first year with the Angels, to where there was even talk about sending him to AAA. Like, can you imagine sending Shohei Ohtani to AAA? And he ends up going on to win Rookie of the Year, but he had a horrible spring training. And being around that, navigating the media, because of everything that comes with Shohei and what he means, it's almost impossible to fathom how big Ohtani is in Japan to anything that we have here. Like as big as Taylor Swift is in America, I think Ohtani is bigger in Japan than Taylor Swift is here. Like, I think it's that level. And so it's hard, I think, as Americans to even grasp that. So the media coverage that came with Shohei, ended up being a pretty neat thing because I learned so much about the Japanese culture and asking questions, and you develop relationships not just with the athletes that you cover, but the people around them, including the other media members that, I still am now close with, some of the higher ups from NHK. I'll never work for NHK. They don't want me. I don't speak the right language, but like it's neat to like have that relationship that I never would have gotten. So sports kind of opens some doors and global opportunities that I just think are probably rare to find in normal life.
I know that you mentioned Ohtani. How did you feel when he got traded to the Dodgers?
Yeah, it was a tough situation because of the way that it worked out. And a lot of people thought that the Angels probably should have traded him at the deadline and gotten a bit of a return back. But the way it ends up, he goes into free agency and signs with the Dodgers, and it kind of became a bidding war. And you just get to a point where the Dodgers are worth so much, they can spend whatever they want to spend. And they were going to find a way to get Ohtani. And, it was a unique feeling because being the Angels guy, being around that, you hate to see him walk out the door. You especially hate to see him walk out the door and stay in the market because, there's competition here. And I think that when you see, it's the National League, it's the American League, it's not maybe a direct competition as far as the players and teams and organizations are concerned, but as the fans are concerned, it's absolutely a rivalry. So you hate to see him go to a rival. I think the Mariners and Astros are bigger rivals, but, the fans think the Dodgers are a rival to the Angels. So you never want to see a superstar go to a rival club. That being said, as a baseball fan, seeing Shohei with I think one of the few marquee franchises in baseball. It's the Dodgers, it's the Yankees, probably the Red Sox and the Cubs maybe fit that same bill. There's just some legacy organizations. And, the Dodgers are one of them. Being in LA and what it's meant, I think, for him, what it's meant for baseball, the expansion of the growth of the game. I think there are certain things that he's been able to accomplish beyond just the winning. I think he could have won with the Angels if some things went differently. But what he's been able to accomplish on a global scale because he's a Dodger, I think that are almost impossible to get if he wasn't with one of those legacy franchises.
All right, Trent, we'll continue talking more about your career when we get back for the break. We'll be right back with In Focus.
Part of the reason why I chose online classes was because it gave me the ability to plan my study schedule around my busy work schedule and busy life. I am a mother of 3 kids and they have a very busy lifestyle, so I have to be able to attend to that. I have taken on-campus classes. They do take a lot more time. A lot of the times you interact with students on the discussion board, so it's kind of nice to collaborate with the students there. I do move along faster in these classes because 16-week courses are crammed into an 8-week course. So with that being said, you're doing like 2 chapters a week versus a chapter a week. I am looking to graduate this spring and transferring to Cal State Fullerton. So I'm very close.
Welcome back to In Focus with our guest Trent Rush, broadcaster for the Los Angeles Angels, Fox Sports, and Fox 11. So Trent, you do play-by-play, you do reporting, you host podcasts, and you serve as a lead analyst. You do a lot. What's the thing that you enjoy doing the most?
Oh gosh, there is nothing like calling games. Like you are driving the ship and telling the story of the game. So for me, play-by-play trumps everything else. I love pre and post game shows. It was great, covering the Dodgers in the World Series and being there on the field after the World Series games. That was an incredibly unique opportunity, but there's still nothing like calling the game, and it really struck me. I was doing a college football game a couple of years ago at Iowa State, and Iowa State top 10 team at the time. But when you go to Ames, Iowa, you land in Des Moines, and then you got to drive another hour just kind of into the middle of nowhere. And I'm from Southern California, and being in LA, and it's hard to fathom what Iowa life is like. But when you're standing there on the 50-yard line at the top of the stadium, when that stadium fills, it becomes the second biggest city in the state. So when you're there in that moment and you are the voice of what is happening in that game that the entire country is watching, that is such an exhilarating feeling. You just don't get that anywhere else. And you get it to the point where you crave it and you can't wait to get it again. And that's where it really hit me. I've done so many games in my life in front of 12 people, where nobody's there, and you grind and you do those games and you really try to get better at the craft. And that's where you really try to hone your skills to be able to get onto that stage. And then when you're there, you do whatever you can to hang on to it and get it as often as you can. That's what play-by-play, I think, brings more than anything else. Breaking a big story is an incredible feeling. Again, the pre- and post-game excitement is awesome, but there's nothing like calling games.
What would you say is the most challenging from all those jobs?
Boy, I don't know that it's challenging, but it's certainly time-consuming, the prep. The prep that goes into a football week it's all week. I think a lot of people don't realize you can't just drop in on Saturday and go call the game. The football week starts on Monday. By the time you're you're reading all day Monday, you're writing and making your boards all day Tuesday, you're on phone calls and Zooms and everything all day Wednesday. A lot of times traveling on Thursday, then you get in on Friday, you're meeting again with those same people while late nights every night while you're still trying to put all your notes together so you get it. And it's just a massive production that ends up happening on Saturday when it comes to kickoff. Very different from baseball, where in baseball, a lot of times you show up to the ballpark and you've done a little homework, but you show up and it's clean slate. What's the lineup going to be today? And then you're kind of working all day that day, but not a whole lot before that. Basketball, it's maybe a couple days of prep, but and let's be honest, in basketball, especially college basketball, yeah, I should know all 12 guys on the roster, and I do. But really, I could put most of my attention into maybe 6 or 7 guys on each team, and that's going to kind of get me through and make sure that I know those guys. Whereas in football, I have to know maybe 200 players. So it's incredibly different, the challenge of that, to be on top of all of those things. I think the hardest part of the job for me is just making sure that I don't let the truck down. There's so many people. As hard as I'm working, my producer's working even harder. Directors, all the people all week that are trying to put it all together, and then so much of all of their work all week kind of falls on you, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you deliver the story that so many people have worked hard to get, and you want to come through for them. You want to come through for your team. So wearing that responsibility, it's a challenge I embrace. I love it. But that I think probably a lot of people would say that's maybe the toughest part.
I know based on all the jobs you do, all the preparation that you just mentioned, and then yesterday you also mentioned you travel sometimes. How do you balance all of that, especially with your personal life?
Yeah, it's tough. I've been married for almost 10 years now, and I have a 4-year-old daughter, and we have a great life, and I like to spend as much time with family as possible. But it's a demanding job that I work 365 days in a year. I'm working 345 of them. I mean, I did the news on Christmas night. I mean, that's just kind of what the job entails. It's nonstop, and then you have to be smart and creative about finding different ways to make sure that your schedule is organized to where I have to schedule family time. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's just kind of the nature of this. So, you're taught to never say no to anything, and because of my never say no attitude, that's allowed me to have this opportunity to work so many different places, to be able to have a life in a very competitive industry. That same never say no attitude also makes it incredibly challenging to fulfill the back end and taking care of the family. And now I've kind of gotten to another place in my life where, okay, we're going to make sure that family is number one, and then I'm going to fill in my work everywhere else. Maybe I'm not working 8 to 15 hours every one of those 345 days, but even if I'm working 3 or 4 hours, I'm still making sure that, okay, I'm going to go get my work done, I'm going to do my job, but I'm also going to make sure that I have time to be a good husband, to be a good father, because ultimately I find that much more important than the job that I do.
Seeing as this is a big job, very stressful at times, I'm sure, what advice would you give to people who want to go into sports broadcasting? Yeah,
I think that it starts with my occupation, my job it's not like this is what I do for work. It, to a way, kind of becomes who you are. And you're constantly going and everything. And I don't love that about the industry. I wish it wasn't that way, but just kind of the nature to succeed. And there's everyone's always trying to climb the ladder, and I mentioned how competitive it is, and you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing when you're getting started to work for very little, to take any opportunity that you can get, to accept it. I remember doing high school lacrosse, for a local cable channel down in San Diego when I was still in school. But the people that I met there led to opportunities that happened with the Big West on ESPN that led to what I do now for Fox, and everything's kind of connected in a way. And the people that you get to know, I'll never forget when I was 15 years old at Orange Lutheran High School. We were doing high school football games, and I was the analyst on radio there, but I also, went and borrowed an old football camera and went to Best Buy and plugged in a microphone and a XLR, and I would be doing interviews with players. And I got to meet a few other people because there was another school in our league, Mater Dei, where they were trying to build their own kind of cable network, in a way, at least, or streaming network, I should say. And the guy that ran that was a guy by the name of Jeff Proctor. Well, fast forward 17 years, that's now somebody that I work with every day with the Angels, that you just never know the connections that you're going to make in this. So you more than anything else, treat people right. You never know who you're going to meet. Be someone that people root for and cheer for. And a lot of times that means caring and giving to others and doing everything you can to support other people. Give back as much as you can. The more you take, I think that then you're going to have less to give over time. Now, for everyone that's in college right now, take what people want to offer, because there's good people that want to give back. But make sure that you remember when you get to a certain place that it's going to become your time to give that back. And that would be some of my best advice. Again, be natural, be authentic, be who you are. And being a good person, I think, means even more than being a good broadcaster.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Fox Sports and Angels broadcaster. Make sure to watch future episodes of In Focus and SAC News on our YouTube channel. I'm Brenda Ramirez. Thanks for watching.